The beginning after the end. Chapter 1. The light at the end of the tunnel.
I've never believed in all that light at the end of the tunnel nonsense, where people, after experiencing near-death experiences, wake up in a cold sweat exclaiming, "I've seen the light." But here I am currently in this so-called tunnel facing this bright light, when the last thing I remember was that I was asleep in my bedroom, while others call it the royal chamber. Did someone murder me? I don't remember hurting anyone. But then again, being a public figure of power can give others all sorts of reasons to want me dead. Anyway, since it doesn't look like I'll be waking up anytime soon, and I'm slowly gravitating towards this bright light, I'd better get on with it. Seeming to take forever to get towards this light, I half expected some choir of children singing an angelic melody, calling me to heaven. Instead, my view of everything around turned into a bright red blur as sounds assaulted my ears. When I try to say something, the only sound that comes out seems to be a cry. I hear muffled voices becoming clearer, and I understand one. "Congratulations, ma'am. Congratulations, sir. He's a healthy boy." Wait, I think normally I should be thinking something like, "Shit, was I just born? Am I a baby now?" But strangely, the only thought that seemed to pop into my mind was, so, the bright light at the end of the tunnel is the light that enters the female vagina. Let's not dwell on that. Assessing my situation like the royal king that I am, I realized first of all that wherever I was born, I understand the language. That's a good thing. Then, after slowly and painfully opening my eyes, my retinas were bombarded with different colors and figures. It took a while for my infant eyes to start working. The doctor, or so it seemed, in front of me had a not-so-attractive face, with long gray hair on his head and chin. I swear his glasses were thick enough to be bulletproof. The strange thing was that he wasn't wearing a doctor's gown, nor were we in a hospital room. I seemed to have been born in some satanic invocation ritual room, because this room was lit only by a few candles, and we were on the floor. I look around and see the woman who pushed me out of her tunnel. Calling her mother should be fair. Taking a few more seconds to see what she looks like, I have to admit that she is a beauty, but it might be my eyes that are a bit blurry. Rather than a glamorous beauty, it would be better to describe her as lovely, in a very kind and gentle sense, with distinctive red hair and brown eyes. I can't help but notice her long eyelashes and snub nose that makes me just want to cling to her. She just permeates this feeling of motherhood. Is that how babies are attracted to their mothers? I turn my face away and turn to the right to barely distinguish the person I assume to be my father from his stupid smile and watery eyes when he sees me. Immediately he says, "Hello, little Art. I'm your daddy. Can you say daddy?" I look around to see my mother and the house doctor, for all the certification he seems to have. Roll my eyes, and my mother manages to sneer, "Darling, he's only just been born." I take a closer look at my father, and can see why my lovely mother was attracted to him. Apart from the few loose screws he seemed to have in waiting for a newborn to articulate a two-syllable word, where I'll just give him the benefit of the doubt and think he said it for the joy of being a father, he was a very charismatic-looking man, with a well-shaven square jaw. His hair, a very grayish-brown color, seemed to be cut short, while his eyebrows were strong and fierce, extending in the shape of a V-shaped sword. However, his eyes had a gentle quality, whether it was the way his eyes drooped a little at the end, or the deep blue, almost sapphire, color that his irises radiated. When I had finished observing my parents, the would-be doctor excused himself by saying, "Please continue resting for a few days, Mrs. Lewin, and let me know if anything happens to Arthur, Mr. Lewin." The next 2 weeks after my journey out of the tunnel were a new kind of torture for me. I had little or no motor control over my limbs, except to lift them, and even that tired me out quickly. I realized that babies can't control their fingers as much. I don't know how to tell you, but when you put your fingers in the palm of a baby's hand, they don't grab because they like you. They grab because it's like being hit on the bone. It's a reflex. Forget motor control, I can't even excrete my waste at my own discretion. Just get out. Ha ha ha. One positive aspect was that I was breastfed by my mother. Don't get me wrong, no ulterior motives whatsoever. It's just that breast milk tastes much better than baby formula and has a higher nutritional value, right? Please believe me. The place where satanic demons are summoned seems to be my parents' bedroom, and from what I imagine, this place where I am trapped is, I hope, a place in my world that is the past, where electricity has not yet been invented. My mother quickly proved my hopes wrong when one day she healed a scratch on my leg when my idiot father threw me against a drawer. No, not like Band-Aid and a kiss heals, but a full, bright light with a slight buzz from your hands does. Where the hell am I? My mother's name is Alice Lewin, and my father, Reynolds Lewin. At least they seem to be good people, if not the best. I suspect my mother is an angel, because I've never met such a kind and warm person. While I was being carried on my back by a kind of cradle strap, I went with her to what she called the city. This town of Ashbur is more like a glorified outpost, since there are no roads or buildings. We walked along the main dirt track, where there were stalls on both sides with various merchants, vendors and sellers selling all kinds of things, from common everyday necessities to things I thought I couldn't avoid. But my eyes widened, like weapons and armor and stones. Shiny stones. The strangest thing I can't get used to is people carrying weapons as if they were part of their clothing. I witnessed a man of about 170 centimeters carrying a giant hatchet that was bigger than him. Anyway, Mom keeps talking to me, probably to try to get me to learn the language faster, while she does the day's shopping, exchanging pleasantries with various people who pass by or work in the stalls. Meanwhile, my body is turning against me once again, and I've fallen asleep. Damn useless body. Sitting on my mother's lap, who was cuddling me to her chest, I concentrated intensely on my father, who was singing for a good minute, which sounded like a prayer to the earth. I leaned closer and closer, almost falling out of my human seat as I waited for some magical phenomenon, like an earthquake spitting on the ground, or a giant stone golem emerging. After what seemed like an eternity, believe me, for a child who has the attention span of a goldfish, it was, I saw a giant stone golem. 3 adult stones the size of a human came out of the ground and crashed into a nearby tree. What in the name of was that? I waved my arms in anger and regret, but my idiot father interpreted this as a wow and had a big smile on his face saying, "Your dad's amazing, huh?" No, my father was a much better warrior. When he put on his 2 iron gauntlets, even I felt compelled to drop my underwear, or diaper, for him. With agile movements that were surprising for his build, his fists carried the strength to break the sound barrier, but were fluid enough not to leave an opening. In my world, he could be classified as an elite, leading a platoon of 100 soldiers, but to me, he was my idiot father. From what I learned about this world, it seemed to be a fairly simple world of magic and warriors, where power and wealth decided your position in society. In that sense, it wasn't much different from my world, except for the lack of technology and the small difference between magic and kite here. In my old world, wars had become an almost obsolete way of settling disputes between countries. Don't get me wrong, of course there were still battles on a smaller scale, and armies were still necessary for the safety of citizens. However, disputes concerning the well-being of a country were based on a duel between the rulers of their country, limited to the use of key and melee weapons, or on a simulated battle between platoons, where limited firearms were allowed for the smallest disputes. So the kings were not the typical fat man sitting on the throne commanding others out of ignorance, but had to be the strongest and most intelligent men to represent their country. But enough about that. Currency in this new world seemed pretty straightforward with the exchanges my mother had with merchants. Copper is the lowest form of currency, then silver, and then gold. Although I've yet to see anything that costs as much as a gold coin, normal families seem to be able to live well on a few copper coins a day. 100 copper equal sign, 1 silver, 100 silver equal sign, 1 gold. Every day I focused on perfecting my new body, mastering the motor functions that reside inside me. Then one day everything changed.